because I had been talking to friends I knew of Charlie Kirk about this transformation he was experiencing in private. And my article about that and how he personally detested Netanyahu. He comes out and announces on his own, on the prime minister's own channel on Twitter X and other social media networks, that he did not kill Charlie Kirk.
Max Blumenthal just exposed Benjamin Netanyahu's many lies about Charlie Kirk in the last days of his life, and in this clip delves into the subject of what this means as it pertains to the FBI investigation in his murder, the implications for the Trump administration, and the high level of pressure him and his organization were feeling to toe the line when it comes to an Israel first attitude. Max broke this story in many ways, so let's get his take on it. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Max, let's start with what has happened in the United States, the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and the way that the Israeli government, specifically, particularly Benjamin Netanyahu, was reacting to what has happened in the United States. What is his obsession with the case of Charlie Kirk?
Yeah, I've lost count of the amount of videos, the number of videos that Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has released, and the interviews that he has conducted specifically about Charlie Kirk since the conservative operative was killed on September 10th. But Netanyahu immediately weighed in with prayers about Charlie Kirk just minutes after he was killed. It was eerie. His body was still warm, and Netanyahu was beginning to claim Charlie Kirk's legacy. I've been writing about Charlie Kirk for 10 years now. He was not just one of the most important conservative youth activists, he was also one of the most critical Gentile assets that the self-proclaimed Jewish state controlled inside the United States. And he had started to move away from the Israeli line, and specifically Netanyahu's line, and even entertain the possibility of publicly calling for Netanyahu to resign, because he privately despised Netanyahu in the months before his death. He was under enormous pressure from Zionist activists who are close to Netanyahu, basically Netanyahu's cutouts and the millionaires and billionaires that Netanyahu presides over inside the United States. He was under enormous pressure to kind of fall back, to stop providing a platform to Israel critics at his TPUSA events.
Yeah, that is generally what Max's article says, and he covers it here, in this interview, but he also says that he came to believe that Netanyahu was a bully and that he had a personal issue with the fact that Netanyahu essentially got to handpick some of the Trump cabinet members, and that does seem to be the case given some of those picks like Marco Rubio and Mike Waltz and Mike Huckabee, etc. The one thing I want to maybe not even check Max on, he said within mere minutes Netanyahu was talking about Charlie Kirk after he was shot. That's true. If mere minutes means 39 minutes, he did say praying for Charlie Kirk. In 39 minutes after Kirk was shot, we broke this down on other videos. Kirk was shot at 12:23 local time in Utah, and Netanyahu made that statement at 1:02 local time in Utah. So that is the truth. I don't completely agree with the assessment that he was turning against Israel. We have tweets like this where he's, doubling down on pro-Israel propaganda about starvation in Gaza on his own channel, this lengthy video. In that interview with Megyn Kelly, where he does say some interesting things about having problems with the pressure against him and calling his character into question after minor criticisms of Israel, they do also talk about the fact you can't trust the images coming out of Gaza, doubling down on this mentality that it's not a genocide, etc. But Max is mostly right here in presenting this.
Like Tucker Carlson or Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Charlie Kirk was resisting. So Netanyahu sought to paper over all this history and this reality, which was mostly taking place in private, but which people who paid close attention to Charlie Kirk like me knew was taking place because of the public statements he was making, complaining about all of this Israel lobbying he was being subjected to, and why can't he care most about his own country and not this foreign country. So Netanyahu seeks to bury that history and to make Charlie Kirk out to be the hero of Israel after his killing. And he starts conducting interviews on Fox about how much Charlie loved Israel. Then he introduces a video on Twitter X, Netanyahu personally speaking to a camera about a letter Charlie had written him based on an invitation Netanyahu extended to Charlie Kirk 2 weeks before his death to visit Israel on a propaganda trip, which would have ostensibly been paid for by Israel. And Netanyahu didn't say whether Charlie Kirk accepted his invitation. The reason Netanyahu was doing this, just to answer your original question, was because Israel requires American, Christian, mostly conservative men to fight the war of Armageddon that Netanyahu wants against Iran, just as it required them to fight Israel, the war Israel wanted against Iraq. And so they need to keep the MAGA base on their side, and Charlie Kirk would have been the perfect symbol for that.
Yeah, he's right about that 100%. Also, as it pertains to Syria, regime change that they always wanted to depose Assad and put in Jilani, the former Al-Qaeda fighter that founded Al-Qaeda's affiliate in Syria. He's now the leader of Syria, deposing Assad with the help of Turkey and some other powers too. The U.S. deposed Gaddafi because Israel wanted them to. The thing that's really great here that he pointed out, and it's a thing that very few people are talking about in relation to this, is he's right. Netanyahu brought up this letter that Charlie Kirk wrote him, and he had apparently invited Charlie Kirk to go to Israel. Now, all he said in his videos that I've seen is, unfortunately, that will never happen. You know, Charlie Kirk will never be able to come to Israel. But the source close to Max told him that Charlie Kirk had turned down that trip. And hey, there could be honest and open reasons for that outside of that he was disgruntled about Israel, whether it was timing or something. But that's a detail Netanyahu is kind of skirting around and, you know, dancing around without saying, you know, whether or not he was willing to go. And that's at least, you know, some information that's interesting.
And then the gray zone comes in and screws everything up, because I had been talking to friends I knew of Charlie Kirk about this transformation he was experiencing in private. And my article about that and how he personally detested Netanyahu was one of the most viral pieces we have ever published at the Gray Zone. And I followed it up by exposing, we broke the story at the Gray Zone by exposing the secret summit that one of Netanyahu's top billionaire cutouts in the United States, Bill Ackman, had convened in the Hamptons, where basically Charlie Kirk was supposed to oversee a influencer summit where influencers were going to be paid to generate millions of clicks and impressions for Israel, and everyone got invited on a propaganda tour to Israel. This was not supposed to be known, and the summit devolved into what was described to me by one attendee as a disaster when Bill Ackman, the billionaire donor close to Netanyahu, started challenging and pressuring Charlie Kirk about his views on Israel. And then another Zionist influencer, this young British lawyer who is one of the biggest Zionist thugs in London, trying to get every protester arrested. Her name is Natasha Hausdorff, started screaming at Charlie Kirk. And, you know, when this got out there, Candace Owens, a former TPUSA associate of Kirk, longtime friend of Charlie Kirk, subsequent to the publication of my article about that influencer summit, Candace Owens goes live and provides more details about the summit. And from there, the entire Zionist world of bigwigs and donors and operatives who are close to Netanyahu in the United States goes into full meltdown mode. And
yeah, this is totally true. They've gone into a campaign to try to seize this moment to make Charlie Kirk the most devout martyr of Israel of all time, make him indistinguishable from Ben Shapiro. And this is so transparent, but the people that have covered this story, some people very close to Charlie, tell a different tale about how he was starting to feel intimidated by Netanyahu and his pro-Zionist donors. In Max's piece, he points out the fact that he was frightened about the backlash he had received from them, especially after hosting Tucker Carlson, this guy that went up on stage at this Turning Point USA event, remember, funded by these Zionist billionaires like Bill Ackman, saying, not only is it just extremely likely that Epstein was working for Israel, but also that it's not anti-Semitic to criticize Israel. And saying those two things is akin to holding a crucifix up to Dracula. You just don't do that in front of rich Zionists and not expect to pay for it. He also had Dave Smith at that show, at that event, I should say, to debate Josh Hammer. And pardon the pun, but he hammered Josh Hammer, and he got more applause for his positions that were anti-Zionist at this event. And, you know, it's striking the backlash he received. So Max is right about that. And there's this attempt in this moment by Netanyahu and the Zionists to recapture the American right, which is becoming more and more lost from the rigid mentality that's Israel first at all costs. That is, you know, the political circumstances entrenched in Washington with AIPAC control. But younger people are just sick of it. They're abandoning it. And Charlie was a guy at the forefront of a conservative organization that they expected to steer those children back to Israel, or young adults, children, young adults.
Launches this all-out campaign to destroy Candace Owens' reputation. They're falsely claiming that the gray zone's funded by Iran. They're trying everything they can to discredit this reporting. And then, finally, Netanyahu does another video where he comes out and announces on his own, on the prime minister's own channel on Twitter X and other social media networks, that he did not kill Charlie Kirk. I never accused him of killing Charlie Kirk. I said there was no evidence that Israel killed Charlie Kirk, but he felt the need to proclaim that Israel killed Charlie Kirk, and he begins denouncing everyone who has reported that Charlie Kirk actually didn't like him. So this got all the way to Netanyahu.
Netanyahu has said that twice in public English-speaking statements that are video statements that's been disseminated, that he didn't kill Charlie Kirk. What makes you think, if you're a supposed friend of Charlie Kirk, that after his death, you have to get out there and proclaim that you didn't kill Charlie Kirk? This is wild, man. This is like very wild and unprecedented as far as a response here. You know, it's not like Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson or Dave Smith, people close to Charlie Kirk on the right, you know, having some agreements and disagreements with him on Israel, didn't come out and say, you know, I didn't kill Charlie Kirk. And you know what they're saying the reason is? Anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is driving people to that narrative. Well, no, actually, I think the reason why Israel is always suspected in assassinations is because their track record indicates that they're very effective at assassinations. I hate to even use that word when it comes to it, but just check out at this Wikipedia article that documents all of Israel's assassination through the decades. It's broken down on the left side by decades, and that became a meme too because there's just so many. It's countless, going all the way up to the most recent ones in Doha, where they killed hostage negotiators because they don't want to negotiate for the hostages. They want to expand Israel's borders and continue the genocide in Gaza.
He is in full panic mode. And again, the reason why Netanyahu's panicking, the reason why this Zionist network in the US is panicking, is because they are losing their last base of support, which is actually their most critical base of support, what Israel lobbyists referred to as Israel's safety belt in the Bible Belt. And it's that base that they require of Christian, young, white, white men who will go and fight Israel's wars on their behalf against Iran and its allies.
Yeah, couldn't agree with him more. He said it perfectly. They are frustrated. They are on their last limbs here with the support for Israel fading away. They can see it in the distance going off into the sunset to some extent. And that's, by the way, why I think Israel is acting so erratically too, about bombing, 7 of their neighbors after October 7th, moving into Gaza, continuing this genocide, increasing the starvation campaign, giving the GHF a monopoly on the distribution of aid. why they're expanding the West Bank settlements in Syria and Libya in the name of the Greater Israel Project, because they know they don't have that many years left. I mean, AIPAC has the stranglehold right now, man, but things are going to be a little bit different even in 10 years as that support fades away. And yeah, the state gets away with all sorts of stuff that isn't popular with the populace, but at some point they're going to lose a lot of political capital that will have implications politically, at least eventually.
Max, I think what's happening in the aftermath of the assassination somehow, how did you find the way that the government was dealing with the information coming out? They came out, they talk about the outfit of the guy who seems to have assassinated Charlie Kirk. And then Candace Owens comes out and tells us another story. Here is what FBI said.
So when he's first spotted on campus, he has different clothing on, and then he changes clothing on the roof, and then changed back into that clothing at some point, so that when he was apprehended, when he was arrested, the clothing matched the clothing he had on before the shooting.
It seems that he was somehow obsessed with his outfit, and he needed to change it. Here is what Candace Owens said.
What happened? Something made its way around the entire town and into my tips line repeatedly. It is a very clear image of Tyler Robinson, allegedly taken, I'll say allegedly for safety here, but it's looking right according to my timeline, allegedly taken at 6:38 p.m. at a nearby Dairy Queen. Here is that photo that we can show you. Just take a look at this photo. What is wrong with this picture? A lot is wrong with this picture. First and foremost, 6:38 p.m., you just shot someone. You have gone through great pains to hide your face, to change your outfit. But wait, you didn't fully change your outfit, did you? I'm looking at this photo, and you're wearing jeans, and you're wearing the maroon shirt. Now we have a 50-50 combo of the outfits, and now you're showing your eyes, and you're not fearful at all that you might be recognized. Also, wow, you must have quite the stomach. You don't have a record. Next thing you know, you shoot someone and you're like, I'm just going to go have a meal. You don't seem to be too shaken or too.
Yeah, not just this. You see the text that they have released, the communication between Taylor Robinson and his partner. It's amazing, the communication between the two. It seems it's long before from, I don't know, 50 years ago, two people are talking to each other.
Yes, my love, I'm going to retrieve the vehicle and then dispense of the rifle at the drop point. It's something like a federal law enforcement official would write, who's over the age of 60. Like, is this how 22-year-olds speak?
Yeah, he does say drop site. He uses the word vehicle to describe his car. There's other things that people have pointed out that they don't think is possible. But I got to tell you, if you think that this guy is a patsy and or that, you know, this text message exchange is wrong, those two things can't coincide, because that's going to get this case thrown out. If they really did falsify these records, the defense is going to have subpoena power to get the actual text messages from AT&T or Verizon or T-Mobile or whoever this guy's provider is. They could compare it to what's on his phone too. This isn't the sort of thing that you can just plant like a bloody glove and nothing is there to record it or to substantiate that you did it. You know, if you didn't leave like fingerprints on it or something. This is something that can be very easily confirmed digitally. And so this is a part where maybe me and Max see a difference here, is that if you're saying that the feds are falsifying these text messages, that's going to be this guy's gateway to freedom. This case is going to be thrown out. It's the best way to jeopardize this case if the feds really did falsify this script. And I'm not saying that there's some things that wouldn't catch your eyebrow when it comes to how, you know, a 22-year-old guy would speak, but, you know, it's plausible. I mean, people are going to be mad about me about saying this, and I'm sorry, but that's my viewpoint. Tell me in the comments below if you disagree with me. How is this not going to completely jeopardize the Fed's case? And then if your narrative is he's a patsy and it was some other shooter, tell me how this doesn't completely squander that aim. This guy's going to go free if these text messages were doctored, and they're going to have this guy's cell phone provider to be able to confirm that.
And why do the text messages have no timestamps? CNN actually had to to dramatize the text messages. They actually created a graphic that made it look like you were reading your own iPhone, but it was adapted from the charging documents, which had no timestamps, which had this obviously inauthentic language. And then subsequently we learned that the text messages were quote unquote reconstructed. Okay, this is bizarre.
I'm with them on the timestamps. It only causes additional questions for the FBI not to release the timestamps. And we can't, and they're very relevant in this case because in those conversations, he makes references to, the guys that they caught that they thought were the shooter, like presumably maybe George Zinn, but there was another individual. It's not 100% clear. He does say that, with similar clothes was one of them. And the guy that George Zinn he didn't seem to have similar clothing as to Tyler Robinson. He also makes other references to certain things and when they were publicized, so it'd be very helpful to have the timestamps. They should release the timestamps. They also haven't released the actual footage of the stairwell where he was walking up and down the stairwell. You see him having a backpack, presumably with the rifle broken down. They've changed their narrative on, the rifle was deconstructed, then reconstructed, and now their narrative is he brought it up there in pieces and then constructed it. In the indictment doc, they don't point to him, going out to case the location in maroon clothing, but originally the FBI did. So there are questions here. I'm not going to lie. I mean, whether you think, there's any culpability from Israel or not, there's definitely questions about the FBI narrative and what's fitting in here. I think that the text messages are a red herring. I don't think that's something they can falsify without this case being just totally thrown out. But other things do raise way bigger eyebrows, including the timestamps not being released.
The FBI director, Kash Patel, has said that a manifesto was found, but it was destroyed and it has to be forensically reconstructed. So maybe he's referring to the text messages, which conveniently contain a confession of every aspect of the plot. Like you're going to go and do that and try to get away, and then you're going to conveniently confess to your lover in antiquated language every aspect of the plot. That is when I went from a guy who is willing to accept the official story to just asking questions guy.
I don't blame him for that, but apparently he confessed to people that were close to him, friends and family members, and that's why he got turned in anyways too. So if he's going to confess to friends and family members after, by the way, his mother and father consulted with each other and realized that, hey, this guy that they're looking for in this manhunt looks like my son, they confronted him. And he eventually turned himself in after having confessed to this. It looks like he confessed to it outside of these texts. And by the way, neither him nor his defense are saying that these are falsified in any way. I just don't think that the feds can get away with falsifying this without it getting thrown out. And tell me how I'm wrong down below again.
And then more inconsistencies start to come out. And it's not just the inconsistencies, it's what we don't know. Based on what we know right now, the evidence is grainy footage of the shooter on a roof. We just see the movement of someone on a roof and someone jumping off who vaguely resembles Tyler Robinson. Then we have footage, a photograph of someone who is said to be Tyler Robinson walking upstairs. Why do we not have the video? That was not a photograph. That's from a video. So why can't we see the full video of him walking up the stairs so we can match the resemblance?
I'm with them on that. They should release the video for sure. And the video of him coming off the roof is super grainy. Some people are just dead set on believing, yeah, he has the rifle in that video. Some say no, but it's clear to me that he's carrying something. Whether you think it's a rifle or not, he has something in his hand. Very grainy footage. I'm with Max. It'd be nice to have that.
And there's the Dairy Queen photo, which raises questions. How did he get to Dairy Queen 15 minutes after the shooting? It said, I believe in the
that's not the claim. The claim is that he was at Dairy Queen at like 6:38, according to Candace Owens, and saying this. And she kind of broke this story, it seemed like. That was like 6 hours after the shooting. So unless I'm confused about something here, it wasn't within 15 minutes that he got to the Dairy Queen. It was 6 hours later. The shooting was at 12:23, and she's saying that photo was from 6:38. I'm pretty sure. So about 6 hour difference. According to the text messages that they released, he was kind of hanging around, with the hopes of going back to get the rifle because they're going to pin this on him, which they did. But not 15 minutes. I think Max is wrong about that.
Charging document that he was on the roof for 1 minute before firing the fatal shot, which supposedly hit Charlie Kirk in the left side of his neck.
Max is not wrong about this. According to the charging document, he was there for 8 minutes. They say he scaled the wall, got up to the roof at 12:15 local time in Utah, and the fatal shot was taken at 12:23. So Max is wrong about that. It wasn't 1 minute, it was 8 minutes. It's still not that much time to be able to construct the rifle, but I have, done some research on this. You can construct this rifle by attaching the stock to the barrel via 2 screws underneath the Mauser 30-06, and it doesn't seem to be that difficult. I've seen people do it in videos in about a minute. I was very skeptical about that part of this at first too, but it does look like that would have been possible if you just separated the stock from the barrel.
From about 150 to 200 yards away, which, I talked to an Army veteran about this who took the Army shooting test and passed the test. They have to take shots like that, and it's not impossible for a civilian to be able to do that, especially with a 30-06 rifle, which is, very, very accurate. But we don't know the caliber of the wound because we don't have the autopsy report yet. It is up to the family to determine whether the autopsy is public or private, I believe. So it may be the Kirk family has decided not to release it. But then there's footage which shows blood emitting from the wound to the front. And it's a very large wound, which resembles a potential exit wound. There was a camera filming from the back, which was removed. We can see the removal of that camera by, I've been told it was someone associated with TPUSA who removed that camera, but we haven't seen the footage from it yet. I don't even know if the FBI has subpoenaed that footage, but that footage would kind of put to rest the theory that Kirk was potentially shot from the back and that the wound that we see was actually an exit wound.
All right, there's more information on this, presumably after Max gave this interview, because Candace Owens did announce on her show she did see that footage. She got in touch with this Turning Point USA employee that did have that footage for her. And Tyler Ballier here responded pertaining to that, saying this is the head of Tech for All Charlie shows. All video was turned over immediately to the investigators. He says that here. It hasn't been disseminated to the greater public, but Candace Owens said she watched that footage and it doesn't show any kind of, entry wound from the backside. Like what she was expecting to see wasn't there in terms of if you would have to say he was shot from the back and the bullet hole in the front was the exit wound. She didn't see that. Maybe that will be released. I don't know. As far as the autopsy, that is a consideration too. I would love to see that. That would answer a lot of questions. No matter what, you're not going to satisfy people. People are always going to have different theories about this, just like JFK, for good reason, I think, in JFK's case especially. I mean, there's holes in this narrative too, but that would, I think, allay a lot of people's concerns about this. What we do know, though, is the spokesman of Turning Point USA weighed into this about the bullet, and he says that he talked to the surgeon that operated on Charlie and that the coroner did find the bullet just beneath the skin. But we've been told the whole time is the bullet wasn't recovered. So what's the truth here? This is weird, man. Do we have the bullet or do we not have the bullet? That would at least answer some of the ballistics claims people are making that, hey, there's no way to match the bullet to the rifle. You'd be able to do that with the bullet if it really was recovered. But this part has been really raising the most, suspicion and talk, is the fact that his bone was so healthy. This is what the surgeon is saying. His bone was so healthy and the density was so impressive that he's like a man of steel. It should have just gone through and through, talking about the round in his neck. It likely would have killed those standing behind him too. So, man, there are some questions about, why that bullet didn't completely penetrate his skin. Some people are hypothesizing that it bounced off, maybe something on his chest. Apparently, he was wearing a bulletproof vest, or at least that's a possibility. Or, that it went downward inside his body. But this doesn't really answer those questions. The other thing I want to talk about when it comes to Max here is that I don't agree with him that everything he laid out was the only evidence that they have kind of pointed to. We have also DNA from a screwdriver on the roof that matches him, apparently, according to the FBI. And what the use case was for this was apparently that's how he constructed this Mauser 30-06, which was condensed to fit in his backpack. By separating it, he constructed it there on the roof, and then on a towel left wrapping the gun afterward. Now, again, he or his defense isn't disputing this evidence that it wasn't his DNA yet, and maybe they wouldn't. We might have to wait until trial, if this goes to trial, before we get that. But in no case is anyone close to him saying that they believe like the FBI planted this or something like that, right? And I'm not saying that's not possible. I mean, the FBI has been guilty of some nefarious stuff, from Waco to Ruby Ridge to the Jan 6 entrapment to Whitmer entrapment to, COINTELPRO to, trying to convince Martin Luther King to commit suicide. And according to a civil jury in 1998 in Memphis, the FBI has culpability in Martin Luther King's death. By the way, a lot of Americans don't know that, but look that up if you don't believe me. So I'm not saying it's impossible for that to happen. I'm just saying that his defense isn't disputing that part of this yet. So we'll have to see where this goes. Max is a legend. He's amazing. There's only a few things that I would have disagreed with him there. Regarding the timing of the shot and the text messages to some extent. I just think that's going to ruin the case if they're falsified or doctored. And you can confirm if they're falsified or doctored, unless you're saying like there's some grand conspiracy between the FBI and whoever his cell phone provider was to doctor them. And even then, it doesn't seem like they'd be able to doctor what's on his phone, which was actually received by him. So we'll have to see where this goes. Let me know in the comments below. Do you agree with me? Is this an issue? What's the biggest and most striking part of this issue? And where do you see this case going? What are your concerns with it? And why do you think that Netanyahu has lied so much about Charlie Kirk in the days after it? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Dialogue here. This channel was awesome, and I really appreciated the interview. Dialogue works. I'll link it in the description. And please consider becoming a YouTube member. Click the join button below. And if you do that, you can help support the channel. And in return, I'll give you access to all my videos before they go live to the general public. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.